Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The European elections are on. Officially next week it's the turn of Change UK and the SNP in the studio. This week I'm speaking to the leader of the newly minted Brexit Party. When I last interviewed Nigel Farage in November 2016, 2.5 years ago, he told me he'd had enough of party politics. I'm sick of it. Preparing a party for national elections. I'm finished. He's with me now.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nigel Farage, in 2016, why did you not advocate no deal?
Because it was obvious that we could do a free trade deal. Monsieur Barnier, the others were talking about this. The problem is the Prime Minister never asked for it, so we finished up in the mess that we're in. And
It was obvious, but it didn't happen.
Well, because the Prime Minister didn't ask for it, she chose to go for this close and special partnership. Basically, right from the start, she was happy for us to be kept very close to the customs union. So where we are now, the only way the democratic will of the people can be delivered is to leave on a WTO deal.
So you accept that you weren't advocating no deal back then, which you now...
Oh, no. In the referendum itself, I was the one that coined the phrase, no deal is better than a bad deal, which of course is pretty obvious.
I've gone back and you said it, if you said it away from the cameras and the microphones.
I'm sorry.
This.
No deal is better than a bad deal. I was using every day for the last 2 weeks of that campaign.
We can't find it.
Well, you better look closer.
What I can find is you talking about a deal and the possibility of a deal. Here, for an example, is
a free trade deal.
Well, here's an example of what you said at the time.
Iceland and Switzerland can get deals that suit them. We can do something far, far better than that. Norway chooses its own deal. We will choose our own deal.
But we didn't.
But we had a Prime Minister who has willfully deceived us. And by the way, what she's put to Parliament 3 times isn't a deal, it's a new European treaty. I didn't spend 25 years campaigning to leave the European Union to sign up to a new treaty.
My point is fairly simple, that during the referendum you were advocating one thing and now you're advocating something different. You're advocating a no-deal Brexit.
Well, because the only way we can deliver the democratic will of the people is to leave on WTO terms. And I'll tell you something, once we do that, the European Union will be banging our door down to have a sensible tariff-free deal.
So you can accept that from the point of view of the referendum in 2016, there is no mandate for a no-deal Brexit?
I'm sorry, I couldn't disagree more. We voted to leave. We didn't vote for a deal. We voted to leave once in the referendum. The year after that, both the Labour and Conservative parties promised us in their manifestos they would honour the result of the referendum. And here we are, nearly 3 years on from that referendum. Brexit's not been delivered. And frankly, given this government and given this Parliament, there is no prospect of these parties delivering a clean break Brexit.
But we've just heard you and everybody else on the Leave campaign saying there was going to be a deal. We are now in a very, very different situation.
We didn't ask for a free trade deal. That is a fault of a Prime Minister who was willfully deceived the nation from the very beginning. But the point here is, you're getting hung up on the wrong subject with respect. You are talking about deals and business,
because that's
as everybody does. What about democracy? What about democracy?
Well,
what about the fact that 500 MPs voted for Article 50, which said we would leave on March the 29th with or without a deal? That, Andrew, was part of UK legislation. It has not been delivered, and that's why. That's why there is a massive appetite for the Brexit Party right now, because people want to live in a democratic country.
Can I put it to you, the other way of seeing this is actually disentangling ourselves from the EU without there being an economic hit after 45 years is very, very complicated, very, very difficult. It requires nuance and patience, and that is what the government has been trying to do. And in a sense, you're sitting at the back of the classroom throwing bottles.
The government has not been doing that. The government is trying to sign us up to a new European treaty which keeps us tied in terms of our military, our security, keeps us effectively inside a customs union. We have been betrayed, not just by the Conservatives. Labour have done the same thing too. And ultimately, and this is what people are talking about outside central London, do we live in a democratic country or don't we? That's the debate, Andrew, that is going on in the country.
And you keep using that word betrayed and betrayal.
No, democracy is the word I keep using.
Well, and
democracy.
And betrayal.
I've used it once.
And one of the things that you say that is a betrayal is a close relationship with the EU once we've left going forward. And again, you've changed your tune on this.
Every single major player in the referendum, everyone on both sides said leaving the European Union is leaving the single market and customs union. It could not have been clearer.
But when it comes to something like a closer relationship, as Norway has, again, you're talking about betrayal. And during the referendum, you used to laud that, you used to present it as a wonderful opportunity.
I said Norway was doing better than we were. Trouble is, the kind of proposal that some in Parliament want is Norway without the fish. We wouldn't even get a deal as good as Norway's. Look, this is our chance. This is our chance. This is our chance to break free of a failing political project, to open ourselves up to the rest of the world, to get some self-confidence back in who we are as a country. And the problem is this. The country very clearly wants us to stand up and be who we are. Our political class do not believe in Britain. They simply don't think we're good enough to run our own affairs.
Well, going back to the Norway arrangement, which would be a closer relationship with the EU than you now want, you said you went further than you suggest. You said at the time.
Why don't we deal with politics now? And this is ridiculous. I'm telling you that in the referendum I said Norway is doing better than we are. However, as I said on this programme, we can do much better than that. We could have gone for a free trade deal. We didn't. We're now 3 years on. We have to deliver the democratic will of the people of this country. The only way we can do that is by leaving on WTO terms. And you know something?
I have to ask a few questions.
Even if that led to some short-term economic disruption, moving house leads to short-term disruption. Right. This is our future. We're talking about the next 50 years of our lives.
This is a losing house when lots of your fellow citizens may lose their jobs.
Or gain jobs. We could do a lot better outside this European Union. And let's bear in mind that actually the vast majority of UK businesses don't trade with Europe. 88% of our economy does not export to the European Union.
Now, you say that you weren't advocating some kind of Norway-style agreement for us. You also said, wouldn't it be terrible if we were like Norway and Switzerland? Really? They're rich, they're happy, they're self-governing.
Yes.
We're told Norway doesn't have a seat at the top table. Oh, yes, it does. That sounds to me like you're advocating a Norway...
No. I was replying to David Cameron, and then I said after that, on your programme, but we can do better than that. We're not a 5 million country. We're a 65 million country. We're the 5th biggest economy in the world. We've got phenomenal outreach with English-speaking countries, all sorts of other countries around the world. We can be better than Norway. We can be better than anybody if we just believe in ourselves.
The tune has changed.
The tune has not changed.
Let's move to another area. You now say that a second referendum or another referendum would be, in your phrase, the ultimate betrayal. How can it be the ultimate betrayal when you yourself have advocated it?
Oh dear. Now look, I've said we have to prepare ourselves on the Leave side mentally for the fact there could be another referendum. If there is, we have to fight it and win it. But here's the truth.
But how can it be a betrayal?
Because we haven't even implemented the first one. You have to implement one referendum before you can even think about having another one. That's how the democratic process works with governments and should work with referendums. But here's the point. If we had a second referendum, I think Leave would win by a bigger margin. However, with this Parliament and this government, it wouldn't be implemented anyway. And that is why what we need here is not just to leave the European Union. We need a different kind of politics in this country.
I'm going to come on to that in a second, but before I do, let's remind ourselves what you said about a second referendum earlier on.
The Cleggs, the Blairs, the Adonises will never, ever give up. They will go on whinging and whining and moaning all the way through this process. So maybe, just maybe, I'm reaching the point of thinking that we should have a second referendum.
On what?
On EU membership.
The whole thing?
Yes, of course.
We should have a second referendum.
Because I'm mentally saying to myself, if it's to happen, let's stop being in denial. And one of the problems here
I'm sorry, how can it be the ultimate betrayal if you yourself were advocating it?
I'm saying I'm mentally preparing myself for one, and I was then and I am now.
So it's not the ultimate betrayal because you were thinking about it?
I'm thinking we may well have it forced upon us.
All right, well, let's move on to another area, which is what you just said just now about reshaping British politics.
Yeah.
You want to splinter the current two-party system. You think you can take out the Tory party if they go for a referendum. Now, your party, the Brexit Party, has no manifesto in this election at all.
Oh, we're the only one with a clear policy platform.
Well, you don't have a manifesto.
Well, do you know, I will never, ever use the word manifesto again. Manifesto to me has a word association with lie, because that's what we've had, an election after election. Policy platforms, no manifestos from the Brexit Party. It's a bad, discredited word. And if you look at it, what is the Labour Party policy in this European election?
We're coming on to them shortly.
What is the Tory Party policy?
We're coming on to
I'll
them
tell you what
well.
ours is. Ours is to leave with a clean break Brexit and get on with the rest of our lives.
Trying to ask you some questions. Do you want to be Prime Minister?
No, not particularly.
So what's going to happen if you beat the Conservative Party and smash the two-party system? If there is a great splintering of the current system, out of the debris and the falling dust, what emerges? The Brexit Party with you.
Who knows what the future is? What I do know is we've got a two-party system that now serves nothing but itself. There is a complete breakdown of trust between the people in this country and our politicians. And frankly, they've revealed themselves to be grossly incompetent. And what I do want to see from this European election, if we can win these elections, absolutely I'm going to demand that Brexit Party MEPs become part of the government negotiating team, because we can perhaps talk some sense into them.
The only way that we can really judge the Brexit Party in the round at the moment is by looking at its leader, looking at you. So let's look at you for a moment.
Well,
do you still want to replace the NHS with a private insurance-based system?
I never did. I would like to take the burden off the NHS. I mean, if you want to go back...
Okay, yes, I do want to go back.
This is really very boring, isn't it?
All you want to do...
All you want to do...
No, I do.
All you want to do is go back to stuff from years ago. Why don't we talk about now in British politics? Why don't we talk about the sea change that is going on out there?
You are trying to lead an insurgent party to replace the main parties. Therefore, you're an important figure in this. I think we are going to have to move to an insurance-based system of healthcare. I would feel more comfortable. My money would return value if I was able to do that through the marketplace of an insurance company than just trusting giving us £100 billion a year to central government. Do you still hold that view?
If I was encouraged to opt out of the system to relieve the burden of the National Health Service, I would do so gleefully. Do you want to discuss these European elections or not?
Yes, I certainly do. But
Go on then, let's try.
Do you still believe that worrying about global warming is the stupidest thing in human history?
I believe that if we decide in this country to tax ourselves to the hilt, to put hundreds of thousands of people out of work in manufacturing industries, given that we produce less than 2% of global CO2, that isn't terribly intelligent. But as I say, here we are with one of the biggest changes in politics that's ever occurred, and you're not even interested.
Do you still
What's wrong with the BBC?
Do you still want to
What is wrong with the BBC?
Do you still want to roll back gun controls and reintroduce handguns to this country?
This sums it up. Do you know, I've been going around the country speaking at pack rallies every night. And do you know who's not there? The BBC. And from this line of questioning now, I can see why.
Do you still...
You're just not interested, are you?
Do you still feel uncomfortable with foreign languages being spoken on trains?
Let's talk about democracy. Let's talk about trust. Let's talk about competence in politics. This is ludicrous.
Do you still feel that people with HIV shouldn't be allowed into this country?
Do I think the National Health Service is there for British people? Yes, I absolutely do.
So you still do?
This is absolutely ludicrous. I've never in my life seen a more ridiculous interview than this. You are not prepared to talk about what is going on in this country today. You're in denial. The BBC's in denial. The Tory and Labour parties are in denial. I think you're all in for a bigger surprise on Thursday week than you can even imagine.
We have talked about it. Do you still admire Vladimir Putin?
No. I've never admired Vladimir Putin.
You asked...
I said I wouldn't like to live in his country.
You asked which current world leader you most admired. You told GQ magazine, as an operator, but not as a human being,
yes.
I would say Putin. The way he played the whole Syria thing,
not as a human being. So I don't like him as a human being. What is your question? What is the relevance of this?
I'm trying to work out who you are and where the Brexit Party, which wants to destroy the party system, is going.
You haven't asked about a single other member of the Brexit Party. You haven't commented on the fact we've got the most diverse list of candidates of any party fighting in this election.
From the Revolutionary Communist Party right through to the right.
That's worth discussing, isn't it? How have we managed to get left and right together? These things are really interesting to your viewers, not trawling back through a series of quotes from years ago.
Do you still want to slash the size of the state?
Absolutely. I want people to have more freedom. Absolutely. And, you know, particularly 5.4 million people out there acting as sole traders, running small businesses, and there's nobody in government on their side. Let's make their lives easier. They'll create more jobs, pay more taxes, and it'll be good for our country.
Well, let's return to the thing that you are most well known for, to a lot of people watching, which is that famous poster, the Breaking Point poster that UKIP put up.
Right.
Can I ask you, would the Brexit Party put that poster up?
Well, we're in different circumstances because Mrs Merkel is not suddenly saying, let's open our doors to everybody.
Yeah, but...
and as you know, or maybe you don't, as years go by, decades evolve, different issues come to the fore. Throughout that period of time, there is no question that the number one issue in British politics was immigration, people's concerns over open borders, its impact on wages, access to public health care. The number one issue in British politics now is democracy, the failure of our political parties to keep their promise. That is what the country is debating.
But that poster sent a very, very clear message about migrants. Are you saying the Brexit Party would not put up a poster like that?
Well, it wouldn't, because it isn't the burning issue of the time.
Do you regret it?
Do I regret helping
that poster?
Do I regret helping
You
to win
regret that poster and
no,
the message it sort of said?
It was the truth. And if you think about that poster, it's transformed European politics. It's changed Italian politics. Mrs. Merkel made a very big mistake.
Nigel Farage, thanks very much indeed for talking to us.